So you have what this demonstrates is that you have a certain degree of showmanship, which I think is an old-fashioned exhibitor concept, and I think the Landmark people do it to a degree, or they used to.
Right.
And you know, the other independent theater chain that has like 200 screens around the country. You're sort of but you have identified yourself in a different way as not as so-called quote-unquote indie as much as nerd indie. So would you define, please, your demo, your perceived demo, which worked like a charm in Austin?
Yeah.
And maybe you could explain why.
Well, although to be fair, I think that the Alamo has a lot of very specific communities that we try to serve. I'm sort of the liaison to the nerd community because I know what I am. I've always been this way. I've always loved these types of movies. I've always, you know, I wasn't on the football team.
Your wife works with you also.
Yeah.
Kara.
Yeah, she's also a nerd.
Okay.
But we do have people on staff that service, you know, more of a classic film community and the sort of the music community in Austin. So we have a pretty large programming staff, and we all have a relationship with a community that we're a part of. And so I'm with the Alamo, it's sort of the ambassador to what we're calling the nerd community.
You program repertory cinema, indie cinema, but you also program first run.
Yes.
Across the board, right?
In large measure,
Yeah.
we show first run movies. At most of our theaters, we're showing the same blockbusters as most other places, but it's interspersed with indie product that we feel we can find an audience for.
Well, Austin, we all know, partly because of South by Southwest, but just because it's just, you know, the University of Texas is just this great film community. But you've done a lot to foster that. How many years have you been there now?
We've been there for 13 years.
Yeah.
It's funny. It doesn't seem like that long. I keep on wanting to say 10 years, but it's been longer than that now. But we came to Austin because there was already a film scene. The Austin Film Society was well established and
run by Richard Linklater.
Richard Linklater, you know, he ran that before he was a big famous Hollywood director, pre-Slacker. And to his credit, I think he's really the ambassador to the film scene. He's the father figure for everything that's really going on, because he chose to stay in Austin, and he's actively tried to recruit business and production and filmmakers and creatives to stay and work in Austin.
And Robert Rodriguez, who has his Troublemaker Studios there as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is, obviously you wouldn't be expanding this aggressively if you weren't being successful. So how does that, why are you successful, do you think?
Well, I mean, there's not that many players in exhibition right now. Most of the screens, 90% of the screens in America are controlled by just a few of the big conglomerates. I think there's some things that they don't do quite as well that we found our little niche, where one was in technical standards. We spend a lot of money on the right equipment, and there's
You're
little
digital,
things.
aren't you?
We switched over to digital about a year and a half ago. We still maintain at every location 35 millimeter on some of the screens, and then we like to have one house that has changeover 35 millimeters so we can run archival prints. So we're all digital for first run, but then we like to have the flexibility to show older classic film. But little things like making sure that you spend the right money on sound equipment, and that you replace your bulbs regularly, and you pay your projectionists above minimum wage, because you hire the people that really care, because it's the heart of the business, and not enough people pay enough attention to it. You know, the ArcLight here in LA is a crown example of that. That's one of their priorities as well, but there's just not that many theater chains that do care about it as much as they should.
And you're booking the right movies, and you know your audience, you know what they're going to like.
The other thing that we've done, and this is from the very first week that we opened, is I remember really vividly. We were showing midnight movies, and we were showing, I think week 1 or week 2, we showed Blue Velvet, had a big Pabst Blue Ribbon special, and people were probably drinking too much beer, and it was getting a little loud, and I was going crazy. Like, it was driving me bananas that people were disrupting the movie experience. And so we made a policy that very next week of, if you talk during the movie and you're warned that you've been talking and you continue to talk, then we're going to rudely kick you out of the movie theater.
Well, for movie purists, let's explain what happens. Basically, everybody sits down a little bit earlier than they might have otherwise. I'm the kind of person that flies in, late to a movie. But you have waiters, and everybody's sitting in front of a countertop kind of thing.
Right.
And there's a little place for the bill to go, and they take your order and they deliver it during the movie when it's dark, right?
Right.
And you eat and you clink and everything, but somehow it works. It doesn't seem disruptive.
Well, it's a minor disruption, but what we've tried to do is eliminate the more significant disruptions out of the experience. So we don't allow kids under 6. We hate people to talk, and they're never welcome in our facility. And we take a very active and aggressive stance against them to train them that we are not their theater, or they can learn manners and they can come back to to our establishment.